traveling is different from, doing business and getting a job. What worried you the most at that time? Because this is a totally new country.
I could make a decision to come to Vietnam because at the time, I didn't have anything to lose.
Fast forward to today, after 17 years, how does it change the way Japanese investors are looking at Vietnam?
I believe that if you want to succeed the business in Vietnam, you should take more risk.
You told me at the beginning you have a dream of starting your own business in Vietnam.
Yes.
But for now, do you still have that dream? Good morning and welcome to the Morning Talk series on Vietsuccess. I'm Quốc Khánh, your host, where we start the day by telling inspiration and inspiring stories from those who is living their dreams. We are so honored to partner with Orient Commercial Bank, OCB, to bring you these conversations in the occasion of the 30th founding anniversary of the bank, with the theme, the sunrise of prosperity. We hope to bring you stories of belief, the stories of inspiration, the stories of resilience and prosperity from our speakers who are having their proud journeys of continuous growth. And we hope throughout these conversations, we encourage each individual to pursue their own dreams, step out of the comfort zones, and hopefully leaving their own legacies on this world. So today, my guest is someone who has a truly compelling story. He's from Japan, but almost 20 years ago, he came to Vietnam and chose this country to be his second home. Built a family here and a beautiful career, settled down here in Ho Chi Minh City. And he personally invested in over 25 early stage startups founded by Japanese entrepreneurs. So please join me to welcome Mr. Takayuki Jitsuhara, or we can call him Taka. Hello, Taka. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you for introducing. Good morning to all viewers of the Morning Talk. And I'm grateful to talk to you, Mr. Kang. And I'd like to express sincere gratitude to OCB for giving me this opportunity. And chúc mừng sinh nhật 30 năm OCB.
Wow, your Vietnamese is getting better. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah.
You are now settling down here in Vietnam for almost 20 years, 17 years,
17
I
years
believe.
since 2009.
Wow, what a journey. This series is called The Morning Talk.
Yes.
So I'm just curious about your morning routine here in Ho Chi Minh City. How is your typical morning routine and how does it change, from way back in Japan?
It's a completely normal morning, and I just get up in the same room with my three children and take a shower and prepare to leave and drop them off at school. And then I start my own time at my favorite cafe. As a Japanese person, we are very grateful for this completely normal morning, because if I were in Japan, I need to commute by very crowded train in the morning. It's very stressful.
So much more busy, much more hectic, much more.
Yes. Very cloudy people, extremely. So that's why. So I'm very pleasant and I'm very happy to have this normal morning. Stress.
Well, congratulations for that journey. So this section called The Sunrise, where we talk about the beginning, fresh start, how you started everything. So for you, Taka, you came to Vietnam in 2009, which is 17 years ago. But before then, what was your experience with Vietnam? How much did you know about Vietnam, and why Vietnam at that time?
Yeah, thank you. When I was a college student in 2007, I traveled Southeast Asia extensively to look for the place to live in the future, because I dreamed of having my own business in foreign countries with more opportunities in Japan. And I traveled to Vietnam, Thailand, the Philippines, Cambodia, and several other countries. And I was so impressed with Vietnam. And at the time, someday, I wanted to come here.
So you were impressed by Vietnam
By
because
Vietnam.
you was a traveler at that time?
Traveler,
you came
yes.
to the country for the first time? What
Yes.
exactly impressed you the most?
At that time, Vietnamese economic situation is quite different from now.
I can imagine.
And GDP per capita is quite lower than Thailand and slightly lower than the Philippines. But I really feel that Vietnam is very powerful and a big potential to grow. Especially there were a lot of opportunities for young people like myself. That's why if I chose to come to Vietnam, I have a great opportunity to make growth here.
What make you think that way? I mean, any experience that shaped your mind about Vietnam?
I remember that I came to Vietnam. Wow, Vietnam is vibrant, exciting, and energetic compared to other neighboring
At that time as a
countries.
traveler, right?
But I wonder why economic situation is still underdeveloped. And then one day I visited War Museum in District 3.
The War Museum.
War Museum.
Yeah.
And then I felt, as a student, that it's the reason why Vietnamese economy is still underdeveloped in other countries. And then I realized that Vietnam have a huge potential to grow faster than other countries. That's why I think Vietnam have a good potential. and
So
good
you
place to
visited
live.
the War Museum. You see
Yes.
that what we went through.
Yes.
You see that we have the potential to grow.
Yes. Yeah. It was shocking for me,
Wow.
but I realized that
So that like 2007?
2007 years.
So what happened in 2009? That's the financial crisis, right?
After graduating from university, even though I have a dream to come to Vietnam, I thought I need to have business experience more. That's why I joined the company in Japan to get some business experience.
What did you do?
The real estate company.
Real estate
Yes.
companies. Yeah.
But unfortunately, when I was just a second year, this company went bankrupt
Why?
due to the financial crisis.
Right.
Or
I remember
or-
that, yeah.
Yes. And then that's why I need to find new career. Then I felt that it was time to make a move to Vietnam. Then I came to Vietnam.
Did you have any worries at that time, or any hesitation? And what worried you the most at that time? Because this is a totally new country. I mean, traveling is different from doing business and getting a job.
Yes.
And at that time, did you speak English at that time?
No,
No
couldn't
English
speak
at
English,
all.
yeah.
And the Vietnamese, we don't speak Japanese. So this is like a totally new country with a lot of new things and unknown factors. What went through your mind at that time to make that decision?
Of course, I'm afraid and I hesitate to make this decision because I'm just a normal people like anyone else. But I could make a decision to come to Vietnam because at the time, I didn't have anything to lose. This is the first point. But second point, I made a decision to come to Vietnam, but how to come to Vietnam? I didn't have any idea.
Yep.
And I didn't have any specific working experience in Japan. That's why I thought I need to get some certificate to show that I have a potential
Right.
to contribute to some companies in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And then I searched a lot of certificates around the world and I find CP in America,
Yeah. That's the exam for accountants, right?
accountant. And at the time I thought maybe if I try my best, I could get this certificate in a short term. And I also can learn English through this study. So then I took the exam to get this certificate, and then I came to Vietnam.
I'm curious about how Japanese investor looking at Vietnam at that time, almost 20 years ago. At that time, how is Vietnam is playing in the map of strategic strategy investors from Japan? What is the view from the Japanese investor at that time?
20 years ago, Vietnam had already became the very attractive country to Japanese companies. But when I have a meeting with the potential investors from Japan, they always think that Vietnam has many restrictions and regulations. They thought there were a lot of risks.
Risk? Right.
Risks to do the business. But after I studied and experienced to support the business in Vietnam, Vietnam doesn't have so much restriction and regulations. The reason why Japanese companies think there are a lot of risks and a lot of restrictions, maybe their experience in China and Thailand make them feel like this. But actually, in Vietnam, there are not so many regulation restrictions like Thailand. We can do most of our businesses by the company 100% owned by Japanese company. That's why I think my role is to advise and communicate with the Japanese company that provide accurate information about the regulations in Vietnam and to advise them to take appropriate risks to do the business in Vietnam.
Back then, it's only a young boy coming from Japan with no experience,
Yes.
real estate experience.
Yeah.
You have to
No experience.
Yeah, you have to take the CPA exam, but now you have risen to the top. I'm curious about that journey. How did you rise to the top, and how did you grow, and from the beginning, and accelerate your career until now?
Oh, it's very interesting, but a difficult question for me to answer because I didn't know the reason why I somehow worked very well when I came to Vietnam. But one thing I truly believe that I was blessed with many excellent colleagues, Vietnamese colleagues. They can support me very well to do the job. I'm foreigner. That's why I always think that I cannot do anything without support from Vietnamese members. And that's why I think one of the significant reasons why I can work in Vietnam is totally thanks to my Vietnamese partners, colleagues. It's time for Japanese people to understand how important Vietnam is for Japan.
So how do you build the trust, and like you said, you're gaining support from the Vietnamese college? So how do you build the trust, and like you said, you're gaining support from the Vietnamese college? At that time, you're quite a young guy, so 20, 29, 27, 29, but you have a different culture background. You're from Japan. Any, adaptation you have to make because the Vietnamese culture is different. How much is it different at that time that you have to change yourself, that you have to adapt yourself to the new working environment here in Vietnam? How does that happen? How does that work?
Actually, I didn't think so much about the different cultural difference between Japan and Vietnam because I was young and my colleagues also young. So we are in the same generation. That's why I didn't think so much difference. I want to build my own, not only career, but also the life in Vietnam from my heart. And that's why I think Vietnamese colleague look at me because I'm foreigner, and I think they can believe me.
Okay.
Yes, and currently I have a confidence that I love Vietnam at the same level or even more than Vietnamese people.
Specifically, what do you like most about the Vietnamese culture, the way you're working with Vietnamese people, right? What do you like most about the interaction and the way of working in Vietnam?
Vietnamese people, especially a young generation, are eager to make growth. The big motivation to
Right.
grow faster.
Got it. Hungry of learning.
Yes, and that's why only one thing I focus doing to become a leader of these young Vietnamese persons, prepare the best environment for our people to make growth.
Right.
And to do that, I try my best to get good clients as much as possible.
Right.
Yes. According to some research, young people can make growth by clients, customers, rather than the boss and through training.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yes, I believe it, and I just focus to do it until now.
Any key challenges that you are facing right now in the accounting and consulting industry? Especially we have a lot of new technological developments and also the change in the regulatory system as well. So what are some of the challenges that you forecasting in your industry that you're dealing with right now?
Yes. As you may know, development of AI is changing our industry. And to the greater or lesser extent, our current job will disappear. What will be required for us as a consultant is we should work more closely with the client, and we should have the mindset to build the business together.
Right.
Yes. So if we can adapt this requirement, we can provide more valuable service to clients. That's why the training and the environment for making growth will be more valuable for our industry from now on.
Right. You told me before that back in the day, 17 years ago, Vietnam was already something in the Japanese investor mind already because we have a lot of potential 17 years ago. But fast forward to today, after 17 years, I'm curious about how does it change the way Japanese investors are looking at Vietnam. How does it change over 17 years?
In my opinion, I'm sure that the importance of Vietnam for Japanese companies is getting bigger and bigger.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
Yes. As you may know, Japan is facing the challenges of becoming the most Asian country in the world,
Sure.
and with a low economic growth. That's why Japan need to find their partner company, which is a developing country with younger populations.
The growth engine.
Yes. And I believe the Vietnam is the best choice for Japan. Even I think it's the only one choice for Japan. And I have several reasons. And the first reason is that for a long time, Vietnam and Japan has been a very good relationship. Not only the governmental level, but also the people-to-people level. And the second point is many Japanese companies have doing the business in Vietnam for a long time, resulting in good reputation and significant presence in Vietnam. And the third reason, I think it's the most important, is for the religious perspective. Vietnamese people and Japanese people share the same branch of Buddhism as the central cultural religion. So it made us easy to build
trust, I guess.
Yeah, trust, connection,
the feeling,
and yes. In recent years, as you may know, many other countries pursuing the strong relationship with Vietnam, especially South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and the United States, France, and Denmark. It's time for Japanese people to understand how important Vietnam is for Japan. Take more action to build a strong and mutually beneficial relationship with Vietnam, I think.
Please come to
Yes,
Vietnam
yeah.
more often and bring more people from Japan to Vietnam. We need that kind of investment.
Yes. Japanese people have to understand Vietnam is the best partner for Japan, but Japan is one of the good choices for Vietnam.
Right.
I think that this is
When Japanese investors or companies approaching Vietnam for the first time, what seem to be the most typical concerns or challenges that they have with this market? Because you are the one who have to talk to them a lot, right? Especially the first time investors coming to Vietnam. What's annoying them the most, and what are their concerned about this market?
economic situation in Vietnam is quite different from Japan. The Vietnamese economy is growing very rapidly and strongly. That's why, and through my experience to observe a lot of businesses in Vietnam, I believe that if you want to succeed the business in Vietnam, you should take more risk.
Okay.
In other words, Japanese company who take the risk, they can succeed in business.
So the bigger concern here is
Yes.
risk.
Yes, but as I explained to you before, Japanese, there are a lot of regulation and risk in Vietnam. That's why my role is to support Japanese investor to take appropriate risks as much as possible to do the
Okay.
business in Vietnam.
So you're saying they are low risk taker. So when come to Vietnam,
Low
they
risk
have-
taker tend
they
to
have to take-
lose in Vietnam, and high risk taker tend to win in Vietnam.
Okay, sounds interesting. But the key thing here is how to take appropriate risk, like you said.
Yes.
How do you take calculated risk in Vietnam? And you are the consultant.
Yes.
How do you help them in finding the appropriate risk to take in Vietnam?
Yes. At first, we have to understand the correct information, accurate information about Vietnam to calculate appropriate risk.
Yeah, right.
And then we should have the policy to take risks to succeed business in Vietnam. On top of that, this is weakness for Japanese company that we take a long time to make decisions. But foreign countries, especially highly developing company in
quick,
Vietnam, we
right?
should make a
Very
decision
fast.
fast. That's why strong person should commit to the business in Vietnam and make a decision as soon as possible after calculate appropriate risk. This
Yeah.
is the key challenge for Japanese.
Right. So they have to take more appropriate and calculated risk, and sometimes quickly.
Yeah.
And they need to make decision quickly.
Yes.
Okay. Good lessons.
It's easy to explain, but it's difficult in action.
When we talk about risk, we have to talk about money because, financial risk. What are your lessons in selecting local bank partners in order to establish a partnership with the local banks
Yes.
that can get support from the local banks effectively?
Most of the Japanese business in Vietnam is to do the business in Vietnam. It means that to sell their service and goods to the Vietnamese people and the Vietnamese companies. For all Japanese businesses in Vietnam, the relationship with local banks are crucial to do the business here. Our main bank is OCB,
Right.
and OCB is provide not only good interest rates and foreign exchange rates, but also they are very proactive and the support from their heart, and the support is tailor-made into each business, be other companies, and that's why OCB we use the most of OCB for both companies and my personality thing also. And OCB is trusted and trusted partner to grow together for us. And of course, to select the local banks, interest rates and foreign exchange rates are very important. But in addition to that, whether we can expect good service means the proactive and tailor-made service from that local bank.
I can imagine you find it quite surprising here in Vietnam because back in Japan, the cost of borrowing is low. The interest rate is so low, right?
Every Vietnamese supplies to know the interest rate in Japan.
Right, like 1%.
1%. Well,
But here, the cost of making a loan is much higher.
yes.
Yeah.
That's why I always invest. Please take a risk. Take a risk, it means about money also. Please invest much amount of money to Vietnam because it's difficult to secure to get the fund in Vietnam. Yes, and also if we invest a big amount of money from borrowing the money in Japan, the cost is small, but we can expect earnings like interest revenue or something.
Here in Vietnam.
Yes.
So for banking partners, they just not only providing interest rate and service fee, but what else are you looking for in a banking partners?
Yes, as you may know, in Vietnam, it's very difficult to secure the fund from bank without any collateral, and especially for startups and small businesses, they don't have any assets for
No
collateral.
way, definitely no
Yes.
collateral, no substantial access.
Yes, but in recent years, some local banks starting to provide unsecured loan to startups, and I believe OCB is the leading bank in this field.
Mm-hmm.
I invested in many startups in Vietnam, and I always recommend that please build a relationship with OCB and try to get unsecured loan from them to expand business rapidly.
Yeah, I want to talk about that too because I know you have invested in many early stage startups, as you just mentioned, mostly founded by Japanese entrepreneurs. And you are saying that the startup that you're investing right now, they can actually get a fund from OCB, from a local bank, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's rarely the case from other bank, but here they're supporting the startup with no collateral. And how many, like right now, almost 30?
Almost 30
Wow,
startups
that's
are
a lot.
investing.
How is the investment so far?
I think I'm a
Any-
lucky investor. That,
Any business that booming yet?
yeah,
or
most of them
grow?
grow, even though they face the challenges, but they overcome and continue growing. Prosperity means feel excellent and wonderful, reliable people or not. And the friends and families, I feel prosperity through the connection with them.
You told me at the beginning you have a dream of starting your own business in Vietnam.
Yes.
But for now, do you still have that dream? Why did you decide to become an angel investor?
I realized that, many young Japanese entrepreneurs coming to Vietnam to start their business in Vietnam. I want to support them.
Okay.
If I can become an investor, I
Okay.
can support them without any service
Wow.
fee from them.
Are there many Japanese people coming to Vietnam to start a business?
Not so many, but the quality of the Japanese entrepreneur challenging in Vietnam is very good.
Really?
They are very
Like how?
excellent
Like-
and capable.
Okay.
Yes.
But do you think the numbers of Japanese entrepreneurs is growing here in Vietnam?
They're growing year by year.
They're coming to choose Vietnam as a place to start a business?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, interesting to know. They can get fund from angel investors and as well as raising capital from banks, right? From local bank like OCB. So when you decided to put your money into a startup, what kind of qualities that you looking for?
Honestly, I'm kind of the person who easily get interested in the entrepreneurs. And
Okay. Because you wanted to be an entrepreneur at that time, right?
even though I have a limited budget,
Wow.
and through our experience of investing in startups, I realized that I need to have some criteria. One of the key criteria is whether they can do the business in Vietnam or not. I can contribute many things in addition to the fund. For example, I can advise tax and accounting and other regulations of Vietnam, and I can explain the business environment in Vietnam. And I myself can become their customer
Right.
to generate revenue and give direct feedback.
That helped a lot.
Yes, and moreover, I feel very excited to actively connect with them and advise them and cheer up their business.
Helping the fellow Japanese is wonderful. Not just the money.
Yes.
So with the small and medium SMEs companies and startup company,
Yeah.
they have no credit track record, or like you mentioned, substantial access for collateral. So what would be your advice for them in dealing with the local banks, working with the local banks to raise some fund, to raise a loan, when they have no credit track record or collateral assets?
At first, they should select right bank, whether they provide unsecured loan or not. And the second, of course, they need to grow their business to attract local bank to consider provide a fund or not. And then the third point is whether they can become a good customer or not. So to build a relationship with the local bank, they should use as much their service as much as possible.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So you help a lot of Japanese entrepreneurs. Have you talked with Vietnamese entrepreneurs, or do you plan to help the Vietnamese entrepreneurs in the future?
I'm very interested in the Vietnamese entrepreneurs and the Vietnamese startups, but that's why now I'm trying to have opportunities
Yeah.
to invest in.
Have you got in touch with anyone from the business community? I mean, what do you think? What do you think about the startup scene here in Vietnam?
Compared to the environment in Japan, the environment for startups in Vietnam
Right.
is very tough. Especially 2 points. For the initial point, it's very difficult to get funds from the investors or from the bank. It's very, very difficult
Comparing
compared
to
to
Japan, right?
And about the second point is the when they succeed the business in Vietnam, but still difficult to exit to become a listed company or to exit the business to other big companies. It's more difficult in Japan. But these two factors of the difficult environment is improving strongly now.
Right.
Yes, as some local bank provide unsecured loan to the startups,
Right.
and as you may know, the stock market in Vietnam is very improving now. That's
This
why
is getting bigger.
yes,
and
the environment will be
growing.
better.
Yeah.
That's why for the investors, it's worth to invest in the startup in Vietnam more than before.
What impressed you the most about the founders? The quality of the founders?
When I meet them and consider investing,
Right.
actually, I didn't pay much care about the business itself. Because, especially young entrepreneurs, they frequently change their business.
All right.
That's why I always focus on the entrepreneurs,
The people,
themselves, the people.
the person, right?
Yes. And
Wow,
then through the conversation, if I find their integrity and resilience or attractive personality,
Mm-hmm.
I want to invest in
Okay.
them. Yes.
Interesting to know. I mean, that could be a lesson that we can learn from. when meeting angel investors like you in the future for the Vietnamese entrepreneurs, we tell you about our stories, right? Family background, the story of transformation to see if we can have the right qualities for you. It's all about the person. It's all about the people, right? Very interesting. The theme of this series is Sunrise of Prosperity, which means the outcome, the success, the final result. It's not just money. It's not only the money, but it could be something else. So from your perspective, what does it mean by prosperity for you?
I thought about what is the prosperity to me,
Yeah.
and I think that for me, prosperity means feel excellent and wonderful, reliable people or not, and the friends and families.
And the relationship, the connection with the people around you,
Yes,
either partners or colleagues or
Yeah.
clients, right?
yes.
So that's a feeling.
Feeling. I feel prosperity through the connection with them.
Over the last 17 years. What is your lesson in gaining trust from other people around you, especially the Vietnamese people?
I want to believe that I get trust from Vietnamese people. From my heart, I love Vietnam, and I believe Vietnamese future, and I want to continue to live here for a long time, hopefully until die.
We could trust you because you love us. That's a fair reason, right? You have the love for Vietnam,
Yes.
as you're gonna.
I don't hide anything,
Right.
and I always talk straight, and I always be open to express my own thought.
After 17 years living here, how much do you change yourself? If you have not come to Vietnam, yeah, that thing would be different, right?
Yes.
But Taka right now, your version of Taka in Vietnam after 17 years, what do you think that make you change a lot?
When I was 26 years old,
Uh-huh.
I was single and I didn't know anything about Vietnam, and I don't have any confidence to provide a valuable service to my clients. I just enjoy working here, and it was very exciting, and I feel my own growth day by day. And I'm not sure how I changed, but
Alright.
I'm sure that this change is made by Vietnam,
Sure.
and I believe this change is good, and that's why if I can get back to this change to Vietnam, I want to support young generations.
Cool.
Yes.
Good to hear. Time flies. It's almost 20 years since the day a young boy coming from Japan. But at that time, you was thinking, okay, Vietnam is a powerful country, has a lot of potential to grow. And it's happened already. After 17 years, you see that grow already. But the way you're looking at Vietnam, how much does it change from the way you're looking at Vietnam back in the day? After 17 years,
Of course, the economic situation changed dramatically for these 17 years, but the strong point of Vietnam and Vietnamese people hasn't changed anything. Vietnamese still young, and young people eager to make growth and high motivation to make their life better day by day, and Vietnamese people believe their own future
right?
will be good.
Yeah.
And of course, compared to 17 years ago, the current level of Vietnam is very higher than. But I'm sure and I believe that still have a lot of potential to make growth, even more than other neighboring countries.
Now you are settling down. You have family with kids here. So I think you are kind of settled down here already. This is a place not just for work, but
Yes.
for life.
Yeah.
You told me at the beginning you have a dream of starting your own business in Vietnam.
Yes.
But for now, do you still have that dream?
I want to expand my work into beyond the boundaries of accounting firm.
Sure. And hope you can become angel investor for many Vietnamese entrepreneurs as well, not just Japanese. So thank you so much for sharing, and good luck with your journey.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you for the conversations. And I truly believe that prosperity is not just the money, but the way you gaining trust with the people around, the feeling of connection, and the love for Vietnam. That's all about emotions, right? It's the prosperity for you. It's whether you can gain the trust from your partners, your college, and the people around you in Vietnam. That's prosperity.
Prosperity, including the relationship with you from today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All the best. And once again, thank you so much, Orient Commercial Bank, OCB, your partners, for bringing the stories of many entrepreneurs and speakers who believe in their dreams and pursue their journey of leaving legacies on this world and building a prosperity for their life. And for Taka, prosperity is a connection with Vietnam, and his love for this country is growing day by day. So thank you so much.